Please let me know once you see my screen.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, thank you, Mataji. So let's do the Mangalacharan first and then we'll start with the class. Om Agyanti Virandasya Gyananjana Chapshuram Emilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Nama Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Stute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhaiva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udire Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya cha Nanda Gopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha Namaha Pankajanaಭಾಯ Namaha Pankajamaline Namaha Pankajanetraya Namaste Pankajangrahe Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauratvishe Namaha Namo Brahmanyaya Devaya Gau Brahmana Hitaya cha Jagaddhitaya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namaha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami iti namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Prabhuji and Mataji, my Dandavat Pranam to each one of you. Thank you for joining the class. So today we will talk about Canto 3, chapter 26, and we'll discuss from verses 26 to 50. So in the last class, His Grace Dasraj Prabhuji had discussed verses from 1 to 25. So before I start, actually, I just want to I want to summarize of where we are currently in Bhagavatam, and where do we stand actually. I mean, what are we studying and what is the context, and so just briefly let's look at the summary of Canto 1 and Canto 2 also, and then we will look into Canto 3. So so basically Bhagavatam has what are known as has 10 topics, which is known as Sarga, Visarga, Sthanam, Poshanam, Uti, Utaya, Manvantra, Ishvanu Nirod, Muktir, and Ashraya. So among and Srila Jiva Goswami says that it's not necessary that one canto has only one topic. So though there is an emphasis on one of these topics in each of the canto, but every canto contains some aspects of other topics as well. So it's not that we can do a one-to-one mapping that this canto discusses this, but yes, there is an emphasis. Each of this topic, each canto has an emphasis on one of these topics. So for example, the Canto 3, which we are discussing currently, has an emphasis on Sarga, which is actually creation of the universe. And now Canto 1 and 2, for example, has topics related to Sarga, Visarga, Ashraya, right? So all these topics are present in Canto 1 and 2. So now let's briefly look at what was discussed in Canto 1. So if you look at Canto 1, the Canto 1 of Srimad Bhagavatam actually discusses about some very deep philosophical topics, right? It discusses bhakti, it discusses Bhagwan, it discusses bhakta, and it. So these are very, very important philosophical topics, and is the foundation to understand Bhagavatam. And right in the at the beginning, it describes Bhagwan, right? Satyam Param Dhimai. So that it starts with that. Then it also introduces the important characters of this epic, right? It discusses Parikshit Maharaj. It introduces Parikshit Maharaj. It introduces Narad Muni. It introduces Vyasdev, and it introduces Lord Krishna. So these are all the important characters in the epic, and they are all introduced in the first canto of Bhagavatam. Then it also, like for example, it starts with some important questions by the sages, and then we find that it establishes that bhakti is the ultimate dharma of all living activity and entities. So bhakti is the basic process by which we can attain God. So it establishes the primacy of bhakti over other processes as well. So though it is actually discussed in the second canto that bhakti is the superior process to other processes, it actually establishes the purpose of religion, right? That bhakti is the purpose of religion, and to obtain God is the purpose of religion. Then we see that it introduces Lord Krishna as the supreme personality of Godhead. It does that introduction. Then there are numerous prayers in first canto, like of Kunti Maharani, Bhishma Dev. So these are very profound prayers which are present in Canto 1. And then it also establishes that Bhagavatam is the ultimate shelter of religion once Lord Shri Krishna left this planet. So all these things are discussed in the Canto 1, and it also discusses the birth of Parikshit Maharaj, how Kali comes into being, and the story of Parikshit Maharaj, his history is discussed in Canto 1. And then background of Srila Vyasdev is also discussed in Canto 1. Now, coming to Canto 2, in Canto 2, we see that first, there is a criticism of Grihamedi in first chapters, and then it establishes that for attached and detached yogi, the Virat Rupa and Paramatma are the basis of are the basis of are the objects of meditation for them. So for the detached yogi, the Paramatma is the object of meditation, and for attached yogi, Virat Rupa is the object of meditation. So all this is discussed in Canto 2. And again, in Canto 2, the most important thing is it establishes the supremacy of bhakti. This is where in Canto 2, the process of bhakti is given a primal importance, and other processes of reaching Lord Krishna, like Ashtanga Yoga, Gyan Yoga, and other processes, it explains the difficulties with those processes. So all this is present in Canto 2. Again, then there is a discussion about the creation of the universe in Canto 2. It discusses about the what is called as Karana Shrishti, right? What is called as the creation of the 23 elements, or the activities of Karan Dakshai Vishnu, right? So all this is part of Canto 2. Now, coming into Canto 3, so Canto 3, let's go into what is present in Canto 3. So I've taken this summary from the Subodhini. So in Canto 3, we have discussed up to 25 chapters, right? So we'll just quickly look at what is there. So there is a meeting between Uddhava and Vidura. So the character of Vidura is introduced in Canto 1, and the discussion between Uddhava and Vidura takes place on the banks of Yamuna, and Uddhava remembers Lord Krishna and his pastimes are briefly discussed in chapters 2 and 3 and 4. And then Uddhava directs Vidura to Maitreya Rishi, because Maitreya Rishi, because Lord Shri Krishna gave all the instructions to Uddhava, or all the knowledge to Uddhava. Hence, Vidura wanted to understand that knowledge from Uddhava, but Uddhava directs Vidura to Maitreya Rishi, and then Vidura actually meets Maitreya Rishi in Haridwar, or on the banks of Ganges, and then he posts a lot of questions to Maitreya Rishi. So these are some of these questions which are posted to Maitreya Rishi by Vidura, and that's part 2 of this canto. Actually, Canto 3 discusses a very wide variety of topics. I mean, you can see that there are 4 actually subdivisions, if you call it, of this Canto 3. So part 1 is actually meeting of Uddhava and Vidura. Part 2 is discussions about Sarga and Visarga, right? So there is discussion about how Brahma comes into being, and then the time factor, creation of those the 10 types of creation, 6 primary. All this is related to Sarga and Visarga. And the different questions posted by Vidura to Maitreya Rishi. Then Vidura also asked Maitreya Rishi about Swayambhu Manu and his activities, and then the glorious pastimes of Lord Varadev is discussed here in Canto 3. Then finally, in part D, or the 4th sub part, if you call it, there is Kardama Muni's household life. And there is a contrast between the household life of Kashyapa Muni and Diti, and Kardama Muni and Devahuti. So that contrast also comes out, and how the life of Diti and Kashyapa Muni, the household life of Diti and Kashyapa Muni is condemned, and how the life of Kardamba Muni, household life of Kardamba Muni and Devahuti is glorious. That is also discussed. Then Lord Kapila is born from Devahuti's womb. All this is present in Canto 3 as part of this chapters 21 to 24. Now, this again D, and then there is E, part E also, which is the most important part actually of this canto, which is teachings of Lord Kapila to Devahuti, and these are from chapter 25 to 33, right? Now we have already discussed 25, and now currently we are in chapter 26, and so Devahuti is posting questions to Lord Kapila Dev, who is born out of her own womb, and Lord Kapila Dev is an incarnation of the Supreme Lord himself, and he is answering the questions posted by his mother. So basically, in this question 3, which is like the process of jnana, and this chapter 26 comes as an answer to in the discussion of this process of jnana. And in this chapter 26, Kapila Dev is actually describing what is called as Sankhya philosophy. Sankhya philosophy is actually analytical study of the gross, and I mean, it's an analytical study of what we see. I mean, analytical study of jiva, analytical study of atma, analytical study of the gross elements, and so on and so forth. So this Sankhya philosophy is the description in chapter 26. And then there are different processes of yoga further, but the most important thing, and the final instruction of Lord Kapila Dev to her mother is again, as we all do, right? We chant the names of the Lord, and Kapila Dev also instructs her mother to follow the process of bhakti and to attain perfection in life. And with that, this Canto 3 will close. So let's get into chapter 26 now, into the details of chapter 26. Any questions till now? No?
No, Prabhuji.
Okay, I hope you are able to see my screen and hear me clearly, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's get into this chapter 26. So the first 25 shloka, which were discussed by Dasraj Prabhuji yesterday. Let's quickly look at some of the important things which were discussed there. I just have his presentation, so I will just open it up and quickly we'll browse through this. So we saw this concept of Mahat Tattva, the Pradhana and Prakriti. So basically, when the material, if you look here, material consciousness is the cause of conditioned life. Just a moment. Yeah. See, explanation of Pradhana and Prakriti. So Pradhana, what is Pradhana? Pradhana is material nature in its subtle state. So when it is not manifested, or when the material nature is unmanifested, it is called Pradhana. And Prakriti is actually the material elements which are totally manifested. So that's what is called as Prakriti. And then there is something called as Mahat Tattva. Mahat Tattva is basically encompassing the material world. It encompasses the universe. It contains all the universes within it, right? And then what we saw was, like, there are 5 gross elements, and then there are 5 subtle elements, 5 and 5, 10, that smell, taste, color, touch, and sound. And then there are 5 gross elements: earth, water, fire, air, and ether. Then there are 5 senses for acquiring knowledge, and then 5 senses for doing active work. So 10 senses. And then there is mind, intelligence, ego, and consciousness. So these are internal subtle senses. So these are 24 elements, and the 25th element is time. So all this we discussed. Now in this verses from 26 to 50, we will discuss how these 24 elements, so-called 24 elements, as we say, are manifested. How do they come into being? How does that process start? What happens? And how do they come into being? So it discusses the details about how this happens. And actually the last, so basically, if it starts with, like, there is this material creation happens, it's in a pristine state, and then the material ego springs up from the Mahat Tattva. In the Mahat Tattva, this false ego springs up, and then this false ego interacts with three modes of nature, and the interaction of material ego with these three modes of material nature leads to creation, as we will see. What gets created when material ego um, interacts with goodness, what gets created when material ego interacts with passion, and what gets created when material ego interacts uh, with ignorance. So that's where we'll start with, from shloka 26. Okay, so I will. All right. So let's read the first shloka 26, the translation of this. So this false ego is characterized as the doer, as the instrument, and as an effect. It is further characterized as serene, active, or dull, according to how it is influenced by the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. So we are talking about the false ego, and the false ego uh, is characterized. It's actually has three characteristics. It's the doer also. It's an instrument to get for the things to get created, and it also has an effect. So it has all these three characteristics. We'll see how that is actually. Um, for shloka 27 translation, from the false ego of goodness, another transformation takes place. From this evolves the mind, whose thoughts and reflection give rise to desire. So from the interaction of the false ego with the mode of goodness, what transformation takes place? Mind gets created. So the mind is actually the creation which happens due to the interaction of false ego with goodness. So the mind is one of the most important, I would say, I mean, if you can control your mind, you can win the war, right? The mind, if your mind is under your control, the Bhagavad Gita says that, right? It is best of your friends. But if it is not under your control, it is the worst of the enemy. So the mind can make you do crazy things, or the mind can become your best friend and make you achieve things which might be impossible. So that's the power of the mind, right? And that's why our focus is always on controlling the mind, because the mind gives rise to desires, and these desires can never be stopped. But the desires can be actually channeled, right? If you control the mind, your desires can be channeled from being trying to lord over the material energy to being in the service of the Lord. So the mind is one of the most important aspects of our existence, right? If you can control the mind, you will be very happy, and you will, even if you want to achieve anything materially, your mind has to be under your control. uh, be it in the area of sports, be it in any other area, you have to have your mind which is under control. Now the mind is something which is very obstinate, and chapter 6 of Bhagavad Gita discusses many shlokas about the mind. like uh, uh, if you look at shloka 6.10, 6.19, 6.25, there is a very elaborate discussion about the mind in Bhagavad Gita. And also we do mantra meditation, right? Why do we do mantra meditation? In order to control the mind, right? One of the most important thing, uh, see, chanting the holy names of the God is definitely the process, but the byproduct of that is also to control the mind. Mantra meditation is to actually control. Any process of meditation is actually to control the mind. And the real meditation is to actually focus on the personality of Godhead rather than to focus on any voidness. Because if you focus on the mind, you focus your mind on anything void, it just will run away. It's just not possible to control the mind by focusing on something, on voidness. It is actually foolishness. The real process which Bhagavatam states is the mind must be focused on the Lord, on Lord Aniruddha. And that's what is mentioned in the um, mm, in the explanation of the purport for this slokas. So the mind is one of the most important aspects, as I said, and as if we can control the mind and control our desires and channel them to serve the Supreme Lord, our life will become successful. And Krishna consciousness is actually the goal of any yoga. I mean, there are different yoga process, right? Ashtanga yoga, Jnana yoga, but the ultimate goal is to be Krishna conscious, and the simple process is to chant the holy names of the Lord. So this all this is explained in the purports for 26 and 27. Let's look at 28. The mind of the living entity is known by the name of Lord Aniruddha, the supreme ruler of the senses. He possesses a bluish black form resembling a lotus flower growing in the autumn. Is found slowly by the yogis. So, right, the yogis try to meditate on Lord Aniruddha. So the Aniruddha form, actually there are 24 forms of Lord Vishnu, and His Grace Dasraj Prabhuji has also had given the four primal forms like Sankarshna. So the Lord Sankarshna is the what I would say, the characteristic of false ego. He's the Lord of the false ego. With his 1,000 hoods, he's the Lord of the false ego. And Lord Aniruddha is the Lord of the mind. So in order to control the mind, in order to focus our mind, we must focus the mind on Lord Aniruddha. That's the point. And I'll just go through some of the other important points. Another important thing here, which is mentioned, is we see a lot of material advancement today. So all this material advancement is nothing but the manifestation of the false ego. So we see a lot of things being created, for our bodily comforts. This is nothing but manifestation of the false ego. Now, what is false ego? False ego is to identify ourselves with the body, right? So that is what is one aspect of false ego. And once you identify with the body, you want comforts for the body. You think that this body is what I am, and then you try to make it very comfortable, try to enjoy it, and that's what is false ego. And this material advancement, as we see today, is just the manifestation of this false ego. Right? So let's go ahead. Any questions till now? So we have started with how the mind is created. When the false ego mixes with the mode of goodness, mind is created. Let's go ahead. Now, Shloka 29, translation. By transformation of the false ego in passion, intelligence takes birth. Now we are talking about the creation of intelligence. Oh, virtuous lady. The functions of intelligence are to help in ascertaining the nature of objects when they come into view and to help the senses. Shloka 30. Anybody would like to read?
Translation, Prabhuji?
Yeah, translation, Mataji.
Which one?
30th.
Okay. Doubt, misapprehension, correct apprehension, memory, and sleep, as determined by their different functions, are said to be the distinct characteristics of intelligence.
Right. Thank you, Mataji. So now we are looking at how intelligence is created. So the intelligence is created when the false ego mixes with the mode of passion. And what is the characteristic of intelligence? Intelligence is basically discriminating power, right? Discriminating power to understand an object and the nature of objects, right? This is what is mentioned here also, ascertaining the nature of objects. And intelligence is supposed to control the senses, is supposed to help the senses to distinguish between different things, distinguish between what is good, what is bad, right? That's what is intelligence, right? And the ultimate, the perfection of, what is the perfection of intelligence? The perfection of intelligence is to be fixed in Krishna consciousness. That's the perfection of intelligence. If you are not fixing your intelligence and the senses in Krishna consciousness, then it is just like I mean, it's not a very good state, or it's not the aim, or it's not the goal. Basically, you're not achieving what the goal of life is. And so the perfection of intelligence is to be fixed in Krishna consciousness, and that's what Prabhupada is saying. And also intelligence has very important what I would say characteristics, right? Doubt. We always have samshaya. That's what is mentioned here also. Samshayo, right? Samshaya, doubt. Then we have misapprehensions. Now, misapprehensions is we fear certain things which should not be feared. I mean, we are apprehensive of certain things which we should not be. And then there are correct apprehensions. We should be apprehensive of certain things, like we should be apprehensive of bad things. So that is correct apprehensions. Then memory is also part of our intelligence, and sleep is part of our intelligence, because sleep is needed for the correct functioning of our intelligence. If we don't sleep, or if we are not controlled in our sleep, then the intelligence cannot function correctly. So those are the things which are characteristics of intelligence. So you can see that the shloka will describe how certain things is created, and then what are its characters. This is how it will continue. I mean, as we go forward, you will see one of these elements getting how it is created and what are its characteristics. So this is what would be the I would say structure of this shlokas as we go forward. Now, one of the most important thing about doubt is we should have doubt. We should not be blind to accept anything. But when something comes from authoritative sources, we should not doubt that. Now, if you doubt that, as mentioned in Bhagavad Gita in Shloka 4.40, if you doubt the scriptures, or if you doubt something which is authoritative, you will not be happy, and it will lead to misery. And on the other hand, we should not be blind, right? See, Prabhupada used to say that surrender with intelligence, but don't surrender your intelligence, right? So when you are surrendering to a guru, you are surrendering with your intelligence, but you are not surrendering your intelligence. You are intelligent. When the guru is wrong, you leave that guru. So that is what is surrendering with intelligence, but not surrendering your intelligence, right? And then there is a discussion of Patanjali yoga system and Sankhya philosophy, which essentially is similar. In Patanjali yoga system, there is something called as pramana, vipraya, vikalpa, nidra, and smriti. And the Sankhya philosophy is also talking about these things only: doubt, misapprehension, correct apprehension, memory, and sleep, right? So that Prabhupada in the purport to this 30th shloka is actually talking about this Patanjali yoga system and Sankhya philosophy. He's basically comparing these two systems and concluding that they are talking very similar things. Okay. So again, this is like very, very technical. Nothing I would say nothing directly. These are all related to the Supreme Lord, definitely. But as bhaktas, it's little difficult for us, right? This is little dry philosophy if you think about it. But then it's very important to understand this, because this gives a very strong foundation in philosophy, and also it helps us to understand our minuteness, or our insignificance with respect to this whole creation, right? Once you study this creation, you'll realize that how tiny we are. Like earth is a very minuscule part. So somebody controlling earth is nothing. Is absolutely nothing. If you look at it, the most powerful position maybe on this planet today, maybe the president of United States. But then that position is nothing as compared to the whole creation. So that aspect of understanding our insignificance helps us to surrender to the Lord very easily. Now, if you know something is very, very great, you can easily accept that and surrender to that, right? So the reason to study all this is to understand our insignificance, to understand our minuteness in terms of this creation, and then understand how great the Supreme Lord is, right? Let's move on. All right, so 31. Egoism in the mode of passion produces two kinds of senses: the senses for acquiring knowledge and the senses of action. The senses of action depend on the vital energy, and the senses for acquiring knowledge depend on intelligence. Now, we are moving forward. We have seen mind and intelligence. Now we are talking about the 10 senses, right? Senses for acquiring knowledge. What are those? Eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and touch, right? And senses for action, what are those? Mouth, hand, feet, genitals, and rectum, right? So these 10 senses, how do they come into being? They come into being when the egoism mixes with the mode of passion. See, we saw intelligence also comes when egoism mixes with the mode of passion, and these 10 senses also come when egoism mixes with the mode of passion. And intelligence is the one which should be controlling these 10 senses, right? Now, when egoism, Shloka 32, when egoism in ignorance is agitated by the sex energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the subtle element sound is manifested, and from sound come the ethereal sky and the sense of hearing. So slowly we have seen mind, intelligence, 10 senses, and then sound, right? So this is how the process is described, how they get created. So we will see in further shlokas, like from sound comes ether, from ether comes air, from air comes fire, from fire comes water, and from water comes earth. So all this we will see in going forward. This is how the sequence is. So the basic manifestation of the material energy is sound, and sound has a very, very important role. I mean, see, the material entanglement starts with sound, and this material entanglement can be eliminated with sound, right? By chanting the mantra, which is nothing but sound vibration, we can eliminate the material entanglement. So it starts with sound, and you can end that with sound. So the sound or the stotram, so from sound you get the ears, right? And from ears comes shravanam or stotram, right? So and hearing is one of the most important processes of bhakti. And even for acquiring knowledge, or even in material world, if you look at it, basically it's through the years that we gain knowledge, right? We hear, I mean, we hear to some lectures, right? We all attended college. What we used to do in college? We used to hear lectures being given by our professors. So we were acquiring knowledge from our ears, right? And sound is one of the most important aspect of this. So acquiring knowledge comes from sound. And as I said, material entanglement starts with sound and can be eliminated with sound, right? Shloka 33. Persons who are learned and who have true knowledge define sound as, just a moment, sorry, that conveys the idea of an object, indicates the presence of a speaker screened from a view, and constitutes the subtle form of ether, right? As I said, ether comes from sound. This is what describes the creation of ether. Now, please understand that this is very, very technical, and for us, the way we are conditioned, this is very difficult for us to understand. But this is how it is, right? This is how Kapila Dev has described the process, and this is how the Sankhya philosophy is. Please also understand this philosophy is very esoteric, and people spend years studying this philosophy. So if you are not able to understand this, it's perfectly fine. I mean, to be very, very frank, I myself don't understand it. Don't understand it. I have just read the purports of Prabhupada, but Prabhupada has given very, very, I would say, very good purports, and if you read them read them 2 or 3 times, all this will become very, very clear. I mean, it's not very difficult after you read the purports given by Prabhupada. So please bear with me if you are not able to understand this, or if it is not making sense to you. All right. Any questions till now? Okay.
No problem.
Okay, let's move on. I already said sound leads to entanglement and liberation, and then yeah. So another important thing about sound is so the sound vibration, or the Vedic literature. How was the Vedic literature transmitted, right? So the Vedic literature was transmitted to Brahma by the Supreme Lord in the heart, right? So the Vedic literature has come directly from the Lord, right? And so the Vedic literature is called as Apaurusha, and they are also called as Shruti. The Vedic literature is called as Shruti because you hear the Vedic literature and you gain knowledge about the Vedic literature by hearing. So that's why they are called as Shruti. And as I also said already, that hearing is very important, and hearing is what allows us to actually use things which are already present, right? For example, an example is given by Prabhupada is that, let's say you want to build a skyscraper, right? Now, you don't need to manufacture the things which are needed for the skyscraper. They are already available. You assemble them by hearing knowledge about how to assemble those things, right? So the sound actually allows us to utilize things which are already manifested. So the sound is one of the important things, as I've been saying again and again, right? So let's move on. We'll go to, no, I think we did not. Yeah, we did read this. Let's go to 34, 35. Great. So Shloka 34. The activities and characteristics of ethereal element can be observed as the accommodation of room for the external and internal existences of all living entities, namely the field of activities of the vital air, the senses, and the mind. Now, this is a very, very technical thing, right? The activities and characteristics of ethereal element can be observed as accommodation of room for the external and internal existences of living entities. Now, what Prabhupada says in the purport to this is the ether has basically 2 functions, or has 2 activities: external, which is the production of invisible sense object, and internal, right? We know the circulation of vital air and blood. So and ether actually leads to subtle form, and then subtle form leads to gross elements. For example, touch is a subtle thing, right? And touch leads to air. So air is the gross form, and touch is the subtle element. So ether leads to subtle form, and then the subtle form leads to the gross element. We'll see how this happens going forward. And so ether has 2 activities. One is external, which is production of invisible sense objects, right? All these from, as I said, from ether comes air, fire, water, and so all these are actually gross elements, right? you can touch them. They have a form, right? Air, I mean, air is formless, but fire, water, earth, they all have a form. So they are actually what is called as gross elements, right? And ether leads to those gross elements. And ether also has another important internal function, is, as we know, as the circulation of this air and blood, right? In our body, the blood circulation and all is happening due to ether, right? Our body is also composed of these 5 gross elements, as we say, and it composed of ether also, and ether is what is responsible for circulation of vital air and blood in our body. Okay, Shloka 35. From ethereal existence, which evolves from sound, the next transformation takes place under the impulse of time, and thus the subtle element touch and thence the air and sense of touch become prominent. So this describes the process of how the subtle element touch comes into being first, and then from that comes air. So slowly it is evolving, right? As I said, sound, from sound, ether, and from ether is coming air, right? So this is what is described in this shloka. And then from in 36, let's read that translation. Softness and hardness, cold and heat are the distinguishing attributes of touch, right? Again, the attributes of touch are described, which is characterized as the subtle form of air. So touch is a subtle form of air. So every gross element has a subtle form. So for air, touch is the subtle form of air, right? Any questions here? I think this is I'm again I'm saying this is very technical. So if no questions, we'll just move ahead. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Shloka 37. The action of the air is exhibited in movements, mixing, allowing approach to objects of sound and other sense perceptions, and providing for the proper functioning of all other senses, right? So the air, see, if you look at in Ayurveda, the circulation of air, or the if proper circulation of air does not happen, it leads to many diseases, like for example paralysis, right? Or you becoming mad, right? So all this is due to improper circulation of air. It can cause many diseases, right? uh, and that's what Ayurveda talks about, right? There are many diseases which happen when the circulation of air is not proper. And I'll just read this from the purport, right? Nervous breakdowns, madness, these are actually happen due to insufficient circulation of air, right? And so air is one of the most important movements, or if air is not present, it is not possible for us to live. So this movement of air and its importance is discussed in the purport 37. And Ayurveda, I mean, it takes care of there are I mean, what is called as vat in Ayurveda, right? And it's given very um, I mean, it's given huge importance in Ayurveda. Also, if you look at it, if the circulation of air is not there, then we cannot approach a place. We cannot go to a place after hearing. I mean, you will not be able to hear, and then you cannot approach that place after hearing. So that's what is described. So that the circulation of air is very important. And also the ability to detect odor comes from air only, right? Let's move on. Shloka 38. By interactions of the air and the sensations of touch, one receives different forms according to destiny. By evolution of such forms, there is fire, and the eye sees different forms in color. Now, see, from air is coming, there are different forms according to destiny. The sensation of touch, one receives different forms according to, and from such forms there is fire. So air is leading to fire, and since there is fire, we see different forms in color, right? So one after the other, right? One leads to the other. That's what is happening. That's what is described here. Shloka 39. My dear mother, the characteristics of form are understood by dimensions, quality, and individuality. The form of fire is appreciated by its effulgence. So the important point here is that destiny, touch, sensation, interaction of air, situation of the mind produced by different ethereal elements leads to a body, right? Even Bhagavad Gita says that, right? Whatever is the state of your mind at the time of passing away, that's the type of the body you will get. So it's all, being corroborated, I would say here. And every form has a dimension, right? Any form has a dimension, individuality, but sound is independent, right? It does not have a form, and it's um, visible forms. You can do some analytical studies, and form leads to fire. That's what Prabhupada says in this purports. These purports are really esoteric, I would say, and if you have to read it themselves to basically be able to understand this. Okay, let's move on. Sorry. Yeah, Shloka 40. Fire is appreciated by its light and by its ability to cook, to digest, to destroy cold, to evaporate, and to give rise to hunger, thirst, eating, and drinking. So now what is fire is leading to? Fire is leading to the ability to cook, to digest, to destroy cold, to evaporate, and to give rise. So let's see what fire leads to. By the interaction of fire and the visual sensation, the subtle element taste evolves, right? Hunger, so there is taste, uh, evolves under a superior arrangement. From taste, water is produced, and the tongue which perceives taste is also manifested. So slowly one of these senses are coming into, you can see they are coming in. So fire leads to hunger, thirst, eating, and drinking. Then fire plus visual element leads to the taste, and then from the taste comes tongue, and from the tongue leads to water. That's how. So fire leads to water. If you do that, A leads to B, B leads to C. So something like that, analytical. Although originally one, taste becomes manifold as astringent, sweet, bitter, pungent, sour, and salty due to contact with other substances. So this is the evaluation of taste into different things. Again, due to interaction with other substances which are present in nature. So what we have seen sound leads to ether, ether leads to air, air leads to fire, right? Fire leads to water, correct? Let's move on. The characteristics of water are exhibited by its moistening other substances, coagulating various mixtures, causing satisfaction, maintaining life, softening things, driving away heat, incessantly supplying itself to reservoirs of water, and refreshing by slaking thirst. Now, again, the characteristics of water, these are pretty straightforward, nothing to explain. Due to interaction of water with the taste perception, the subtle element odor evolves under the superior arrangement. Thence the earth and the olfactory sense by which we can variously experience the aroma of earth becomes manifest. So again, as you can see, one leading to the other, right? Water plus taste perceptions leads to odor, and from odor leads to earth, and earth leads to the aroma, right? That's how we the sense object. Odor, although one, becomes many as mixed, offensive, fragrant, mild, strong, acidic, and so on, according to the proportions of associated subjects. Again, this is the evolution of odor as of the taste, right? Right. Let's move on. The characteristics of the functions of earth can be perceived by modeling forms of the Supreme Brahman, by constructing places of residences, by preparing pots to contain water, etc. In other words, the earth is the place of sustenance for all elements. Now, earth is a modeling form of the Supreme Brahman. Now, what is the explanation for this? This means that when we create the deities of the Lord by the different elements which are present in the earth, they are the manifestation of the Supreme Lord, right? We can create different deities. We create deities of wood, right? Jagannath Ji is made of wood. So the deities of Jagannath Ji are manifested from what is available in earth. So the earth is actually a manifestation of the Supreme Brahman. It's perceived as by modeling forms of the Supreme Brahman, right? That's how we perceive earth. For example, we can have deities made of stone. For example, in Vrindavan, if you go to Vrindavan and you visit Radharaman temple, so the deities of Radharaman are made from Shaligram, and they are kind of a stone, right? Shaligram is a kind of a stone which is found in the river Gandaki in Nepal. So these the deity forms of the Lord, which are nothing but the manifestations or the modeling forms, right? And we create them from what is available in earth, and that's what it means here. Again, we create different places of residence. We use all the elements which are available in earth. For example, bricks. We create bricks from the mud which is available, and so on and so forth. So the earth is the place of sustenance for all elements. Very clear. Text 47. The sense whose object of perception is sound is called auditory sense, and those whose object of perception is touch is called tactile sense. This is again very clear. Sorry. Right, I explained this, right? Earth can manifest different forms of Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Brahman has innumerable forms, right? Those deity forms of the Lord are actually innumerable, and that's what is mentioned here also. Let's move on. Okay, the sense whose objects of perception is form. The distinctive characteristic of fire is the sense of sight. The sense whose object of perception is taste, the distinctive characteristic of water is known as the sense of taste. Finally, the sense whose object of perception is odor, the distinctive characteristic of earth is called the sense of smell. Right? The different senses are described. It is clear. Since the cause exists in its effect as well, the characteristic of the former are observed in the later. That is why the peculiarities of all elements exist in the earth alone. I'll explain this. So if you look at it, the earth contains the characteristics of everything like sound, ether, water, fire, everything. All these characteristics are present in the earth, and that's what it means. So Shloka 50th. When all these elements were unmixed, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the origin of creation, along with time, work, and qualities of the modes of material nature, entered into the universe with the total material energy in 7 divisions. So this, I mean, this 50th shloka and this third from 50th to 72, it will talk about these 7 divisions and all of this. But till now, what we have seen is how sound leads to ether, ether leads to air, air leads to fire, and then fire leads to water, and then water leads to earth, right? So this is what is described till shloka 50. it's little I would say esoteric and little difficult to understand, and generally as bhaktas we don't enjoy this so much, but it is very important, as I explained, to understand this topic. So I haven't prepared anything further from 50th. So if there are questions, let's discuss those questions, if any, and then it's open for comments. I'm sorry, like I don't have I would say I'm not so well prepared. Also, there is not much material available. I mean, you'll not find any lectures on this topic, at least what I have searched for. I did look in ISKCON Desire Tree, but there were not many lectures. I mean, very generic, and I did not have access. I mean, I did not have access to Subodhini. Probably that would give a little better picture of this whole chapter and its understanding. But briefly, the important point was how this elements and how this senses and all these things come into being. That was the focus of these 25 verses. So any questions on this?
No. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Topic is very technical, as you said.
Yeah.
So though some of the things we experience, these senses, sound, air and all, even the description is a bit technical only.
Yeah, Mataji.
That's why we have to read the purport slowly, at least one or twice, to keep it in mind. Otherwise, we forget it.
Yes.
When you explained, I understood. But as soon as you ask me anything, I can't tell, because we have to read the purport very sincerely. We have to read and we have to take the things.
Yes, but, Mataji.
Actually, you have explained it very nicely.
For this chapter, actually, you have to prepare what is called as notes. You prepare the notes and keep it with you and just keep going over it 1 or 2 times. Then once it fits in your mind that this is how it works, it is very clear. Then you will not forget. But but to get to that, you have to do some preparation.
Homework. Homework we have to do. Whether as a preacher you have to do, and as a listener also we have to do. To keep it in mind. Otherwise, you forget everything. That's like that. Correct. But you have explained it very nicely.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you. So if there are no further questions or comments, I think we'll stop here. I'm sorry. I think this class was pretty short, but I think thank you everyone for joining in, and I can send you this presentation. I mean, there's nothing much here. It's just all what is there in the purports and nothing more than that. But if you spend time reading the purports, you'll definitely get the details clearly. Yeah.
This is not an easy chapter, Prabhu. It is. It takes time, and from all of our side also, we need to put in more effort on this, Prabhu. So there is this Srimad Bhagavatam classes. If you just type on Google, it takes you to a link which is basically
I have
audio lectures.
I have checked that, Prabhuji. You're right. Srimad Bhagavatam classes. I have checked that.
In that, Bhurijan Prabhu has given nice overview, Prabhu.
Bhurijan Prabhuji, that is the only thing I think which is available. You're right.
Yes, Prabhu. And this book also is very good book, Prabhu. So this Unveiling Your Lotus Feet. I have got Bhurijan Prabhu's notes from Canto 1 to Canto 4. He covers first 4 cantos.
Okay.
This is also, I use this book as a very good, it's a kind of a guide also, Prabhu. When I'm first listening to Gauranga Darshan Prabhu's lecture, and then I go through this also. And then I listen to the Srimad Bhagavatam classes. It gives you good.
I have
a very technical topic, Prabhu. It takes time to get inside your head.
Yes, I have gone through this. You're absolutely right. And as you said, there is only lectures by Bhurijan Prabhuji. And I think those are also pretty that is, I'm not listened to them, to be very frank, but I had seen them. And I had gone to this website.
Yes, Prabhu.
And this is a very, very good website, as you said. It gives you every shloka, and whoever has given a lecture, it will show the link to that, and you can just click on the link and listen to this. So this I fully agree.
Overview section that is there, no, Prabhu. I normally go to that, but there's one section called overview, in which Burijan Prabhu goes through the whole chapter.
Okay.
And that is very convenient, Prabhu. That is like, it gives you because the thing is that it's so vast these topics are, you need that first summary kind of one very high level summary you get in that. It's very useful, I found.
Yeah.
But thanks a lot, Prabhu, for taking your time and taking us through it. I know this is not an easy topic, Prabhu. So thanks you so much.
I mean, I'm extremely sorry, but I did not spend. I did not spend that much time actually. I could not on this. I mean, it's an interesting thing to understand all this, but I could not spend that much time to prepare for this lecture actually, and somehow I don't have access to the book which you mentioned. I will buy that book, and I'll also read from that.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right then.
Yeah. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhu.
पंचकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय।